Practicing with a metronome can help you develop solid timing and speed on the banjo, but for many people this is a source of stress and frustration. So today I'm going to show you how to use a metronome to become a better banjo player and musician. Do you really need to practice with a metronome to play with good timing? No, you don't need to, but I also don't think there's a compelling reason not to. As with anything, it's going to take some intentional and efficient strategies to get the most out of practicing this way. And that starts by understanding what it is that a metronome is really for. A metronome makes sound at regular intervals. Unlike us, it never slows down or speeds up. So when we play along with the metronome, we get feedback from our ears, because we're listening to both the metronome and ourselves, that tells us whether or not we're speeding up or slowing down. That means when we speed up or slow down, ideally we'll hear the difference between what we're playing and what the metronome's doing, and that'll give us a clue as to how to adjust our playing to play in time. But if you don't know how to use a metronome or what to listen for, then it's possible your only experience with practicing with a metronome has been frustrating or confusing. So let's start all the way at the beginning. I'm using an app on my phone called Pro Metronome, but there are a lot of other metronome options out there, either digital or physical. To start, set your metronome to 100 beats per minute, and see if you can clap or snap or tap your foot along with the beat. And as you do this, see if maybe you're a little bit ahead, or maybe a little bit behind, or maybe you're right on track. If you can do this, then you're ready to do the same thing on a banjo. At first, it's probably good to start out by playing one note on one string. And if you can do that, then you're ready to play a basic roll pattern. And as you get comfortable with this, you're going to want to increase the speed to test yourself, but be careful not to push yourself beyond your abilities. Progress happens when we push our limits, not exceed them. To some of you, this might seem unnecessarily simple, but I promise this is a hugely productive method of practice. And for those of you who don't have a lot of experience with the metronome, this might be challenging. And that's great because it means you're developing a stronger sense of timing and muscle memory. But for those of you who don't find this challenging, that's still okay. 9 times out of 10, when somebody asks me for advice on their playing or their practice, my advice is to play slowly with a metronome. Anyone can do it, but very few people actually do regularly practice this. You might fit into this category if you know a lot of licks or songs, but you struggle to play them all the way through without stopping or making mistakes. That kind of problem doesn't fix itself, and it doesn't get fixed by accident. This is great, but what if you want to play faster? If you want to practice this way at a reasonable bluegrass tempo, then you're going to have to play along with something like this. That's way too much information to handle, and it also doesn't really help us feel and hear each measure. So instead, let's put the metronome back where we started, and this time we're going to play 4 notes per click. If that's too fast for you right now, that's fine. Just lower the tempo, but make sure to play 4 notes per click. This is a lot more manageable for our ears, but there's another added benefit here. Remember that the purpose of practicing with a metronome is to compare what we're playing with the perfect timing of the metronome. But with 4 notes to the click, we're not getting feedback on every note we play. It's now our responsibility to play each of those notes in time. And then every 4 notes, we get a little reminder from the metronome that says, you're on time, or you're late, or you're early. It's a little more challenging, but that challenge, that effort to maintain the timing, is where progress is made. And that's really the big picture with metronome practice. We get a combination of feedback from the metronome, as well as periods of silence where it's completely up to us to maintain the timing. As an example, let's increase the difficulty again and cut the tempo in half. Now we're going to play 8 notes per click. Let's do it again and play 16 notes per click. What I've shown you is virtually everything I do to practice with the metronome. So you're going to want to apply these concepts to licks and songs, really anything that you want to play with better timing. But it's important to know that practicing with a metronome is a never-ending process. It's not something you graduate from, and you're never really going to run out of uses for a metronome. I know that if I don't practice for a few days, when I pick up the banjo and everything feels a little bit out of place, if I play slowly with the metronome, it's a pretty predictable way of getting back my timing and muscle memory. But it really requires some patience. Because as with any method of practice, what we're looking for is what's challenging and uncomfortable. For you, that might be playing at faster speeds, or maybe it's just clapping along with the metronome at 100 beats per minute. But whatever that challenge is, don't run away from it. That's the only place you can go to improve. I'll say that again. The only place you can go to improve are the places that you find challenging or uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you're trying to play things you can't, but you should push yourself. And I should also address anyone who might be philosophically opposed to the use of a metronome. Some people have the opinion that using a metronome will give you robotic timing that's too perfect. I understand where they're coming from, but no one's ever had perfect timing. Not me, not Earl Scruggs, no one, because we're human. And our goal is not to have perfect timing. Our goal is to have control over our timing. Sammy Sheeler talks about using a metronome all the time when he practices, and I don't think anyone would accuse Sammy Sheeler of having robotic timing. The metronome is simply an unmoving, unmusical reference of perfect timing, and it's up to us to interact with it in a musical way. Some people also say that instead of practicing with a metronome, you should play along with recordings that have good timing. And I agree, that's a great way to practice. But think about practicing with a metronome like practicing in a vacuum. That means it's a great way to practice rolls or licks or songs and a really slow tempo all the way up to a really fast tempo. If you're hearing the bass and the mandolin and the guitar and the banjo in the recording, then it can be a little overwhelming sometimes. All of this is to say that practicing anything in music is not a black and white issue. There are a lot of different ways to practice, and you should incorporate all of them. So I've got no tablature for this lesson, but if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the way that I practice with a metronome and some more challenging techniques, then you should head over to patreon.com/EliGilbertBanjo. That's where you can get an extra practice tip for today's lesson, but you can also get a lot of bonus tabs and practice tips and live streams, a lot of things that you can't find here on YouTube. And for what it's worth, Patreon is what makes these videos possible, so I appreciate all the support I get there. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about Bluegrass Banjo, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And let me know in a comment below what else you'd like to hear about in a video like this. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.